What's the deal with Team Japan?
I have a theory, but it's probably wrong.
But I think they focus in general a lot more on the quality and maybe less on the quantity.
I mean, you tell me. I mean, they got the secret sauce, clearly. It is working.
You like walk in and you see, 10 guys like climbing V15, V16 equivalent of like comp style.
What about them? They're like really good.
This is Climbing Gold. Why is Team Japan so good?
I have a theory, but it's probably wrong. My theory is based on the gym system there. So I'm sure you guys have climbed in Japan because it's like, especially a city like Tokyo, it's packed in. So you get really low ceiling boulder places. And it's like they have to create the weirdest, hardest boulders in order. It's like, have you ever climbed on a moonboard mini before?
No,
Like
I didn't know there was a mini.
Yeah. My friend's got one, and it's tiny, and about 6 people in the world own one. And so the grading on that thing is outrageous because it's, like 2 meters. So you have to come up with bizarre combinations, and it makes you savagely strong. And I think there's an element of that with the Japanese gym system, is that it's just hard. You go to the gyms there and it's brutal. So I think that's added to it. And there's just something about the culture there. It's like people just seem to get obsessed by it and they strive for this perfection. And I also think the Japanese physicality suits bouldering quite well. It's, they're very compact climbers. They're very dynamic. And I think certainly the way the sport has gone in terms of competition climbing really suits that athletic ability that's perhaps in them genetically. So that's my theories.
As we saw from that guy jump back and forth between that volume and the chug like 8 times at the Salt Lake World Cup. We're like, what is this? And what was that guy's name? Because that was an example of some athlete that I'd never heard of, didn't know, and then you're like, oh my God, he's doing something that I've never seen before, and it's totally incredible. And he's like some random dude.
Yeah, his name is he's proper famous, but his name has totally escaped me as I say this. But yeah, I've never seen that happen before in climbing competitions. And I'd honestly thought I'd seen most things.
But then it was a different Japanese guy that did the crazy one-legged squat catch, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm like, that's 2 different Japanese guys, neither of whom I've ever heard of, who are both totally incredible. And you're just like, oh God, it's so next level.
It really is, man. It's crazy. Yeah, it's mad.
What's the deal with Team Japan?
I would definitely say skin is a part of the game, but I also do think it's like the idea that like they're all just like in a smaller country and have like this amazing talent that you like walk in and you see 10 guys like climbing V15, V16 equivalent of like comp style, and I feel like it's like hard not to be inspired. And then like also like climbing with people like that, it's hard not to kind of like learn a lot of those tricks that I was like talking about before, just like intuitively from like a young age. So
what's the deal with Team Japan's skin? Because Josh said the same thing. He was like, they have sticky skin. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what, like, did they have
I mean, I think it's like you kind of don't want too dry of skin because then you're like coming
too
off
slick,
of too slick, and then you don't want too like wet skin because then you're like ripping holes in your fingers all the time. And I think that they just have like this like perfect balance where like they're not bleeding in competition rounds, whereas like a lot of Americans like end up doing that, or like Europeans will be like bleeding by the end of rounds. And I think that like if you look at some of them, it just like looks like they're sticking to things that like others just can't in a round, like Serrato in like the Salt Lake World Cup last year. That was like a amazing example where he just like topped 2 boulders that no one even like got close to. And, it's just like the slopers like that no one else was like sticking to. But of course, like there's a lot of other talent and a lot of other parts of the equation that aren't skin. But I do think that's like a big benefit to their team as a whole.
Mike, is that skin? Because when you see, generally when I see someone hanging on slopers that I can't really imagine hanging on to, it's not the texture of their skin. It's like they're just way stronger, way better on slopers, or I mean, how much of that is skin?
I mean, I don't know because I'm not him, and I'm not climbing with him honestly that much. But I think like there is a combination. I think that just not having to like bleed or like rip through skin fast, I think definitely has helped.
What's the deal with Team Japan?
What about them? They're like really good.
Yeah. What's the deal with that?
I have no clue. Yeah, they are really good though. They, even if you look at like youth worlds, they have a lot of like strong youth climbers coming up. I don't want to like say thing incorrectly because I don't know, but maybe climbing is seen differently in Japan than it is in the US. I mean, I remember being like in the train station and you see like Tomoa and Akio and like the whole Japanese team is just on this huge poster in this insanely busy train station, which you would just never see in the US. So maybe knowledge and accessibility, knowing it's a thing, seeing how there's lots of successful Japanese climbers. Um, I think also the style and like the setting is pretty different than the US. A very high quality at all the gyms that you go to. They don't have a V0 jug hall anywhere, you know? So the level is just so high to begin with.
They don't allow beginners into the gym, full stop.
But even like their easier climbs are very creative and like require movement rather than just like, okay, straight up, like left, right, left, right. There's just more thought, it seems like, put into it.
What's the deal with Team Japan?
I mean, you tell me. I mean, they got the secret sauce, clearly. It is working. I feel like even going to Japan and seeing how deeply climbing is immersed in the culture now is just amazing. There's a climbing gym on most blocks. Like it's kind of crazy like how big climbing blew up and how big the athletes who are succeeding in climbing are in that country. Like they've really just embraced climbing as like just this amazing next level sport. And so it's kind of cool seeing climbers as like celebrity athletes. Like it's like in a similar way we see like NBA stars and stuff. Um, I think also their approach to training and like it just is very like lighthearted and fun, but like it's intense as well. Like even like going and participating in a thing, like they'll just like have like 3, 4 hour sessions where just climbing hard things. And people think like, oh well, like is it like an intense environment? It's like no, not at all. They're just like sessioning and goofing off and having fun, but they're trying things at such a high level that it's strictly indicative to what happens at the competition level, like the World Cup level of climbing, which is why they're constantly pumping out like new World Cup winning athletes. Like clockwork. So I don't know. It's a very impressive system, and I'm curious if we'll ever get to that point in climbing, even in the US. Like I don't know. We'll see.
It's hard to imagine the same level of integration with mainstream culture, like the climbing athletes being such a big deal the way they are in Japan. It's hard to imagine a
Yeah.
climber ever being like an NBA star. You're like, come on. It's like I just don't think Americans care.
Well, I think also though, like when you think of the people who have been able to cross through mainstream in the US as climbers, they all come from the outdoor sector because of
Mhm.
the shock and awe of being outdoors, like on a mountain, like
Even better
metaphorically.
when you're ropeless, way better. People love
uh,
that shit.
I'm about to
That's
say, the amount of people I get to ask me like, "Oh, do you do like what Alex Honnold does?" I'm like, "No,
but you
no,
could.
I
You
like
could.
ropes. Don't tell my mama that. She might come for you."
What's the deal with Team Japan?
I think the most important thing, there is no such a thing like Japanese training program. There's no like big federation that would pay a hell of a lot of money. It's just like a lot of climbers climb at their max level. There are gyms with very good route setting, but the real reason why there are so many good climbers, I don't know. For sure, they train in a different way.
Mhm.
So, for example, they train doing much longer sessions. They project ball problems for much longer than the other European or American climbers. So they would literally like spend 3, 4 hours trying like one dyno all over again until they finally do it. Like nobody really does that in Europe, I think. Uh,
Do they succeed in doing a dyno after 4 hours of effort? Because I feel like if I try something for 20 minutes and I can't do it, I'm like, I probably just can't do it. But I mean,
yeah,
do
but
they
the
actually
thing is
succeed?
like they might take break maybe 15 minutes before between every try. So
Uh,
in the end, they don't maybe try so much because if it's like a dyno which is not only about coordination but a lot of power as well, you can't give a try every 2 minutes and end up sending it on after 4 hours because it's just literally impossible. But I think they focus in general a lot more on the quality and maybe less on the quantity. Or like if you think of spending 6 hours in the climbing gym, you would think like you would do so much. But considering how much time they spend in the gym, they don't maybe, you know, I climb the same amount of climbing in 1.5 hours as they do in 6 hours. But they just put so much emphasis on the quality of the movement. Always when they climb, they're relatively fresh, and they put so much on like the tiniest details, especially that what makes them really good in bouldering. And they do all sorts of styles. So maybe you would think like all of them are really jumpy and they are really good in coordination, but they are good in everything because they just mostly really do everything.